hot. Let's rock and roll.
Yes.
This is, dude, thank you for coming back again.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Take
for those
two.
of you that don't know, it's the second time we have to record this episode. I fucked up the first time. I didn't have enough cameras. I didn't have enough batteries, and everything kind of went to shit. So Trevor, my lovely friend here, Trevor Keveloh, was nice enough to come back and do this. So thank you very much. Welcome to the show again. Trevor Keveloh I've known for a few years now. One of my great friends. I love him to death. He is the owner of the DOJO of COMEDY, which is one of Los Angeles' premier comedy clubs.
Ooh.
Premier comedy clubs, even though they're all closed down right now. It was located on Sunset Blvd in the mix. Had Joe Rogan.
Yep.
Jeff Garland.
Yeah.
Who else was big that came through?
Omar Gooding was there for a while.
Omar Gooding, Jeremy Piven. You had some big names come through the door.
Yeah, we had a lot of big names.
And fucking kill it.
Yeah.
I want to touch, how'd you get started in comedy? How did this whole journey start for you?
Well, like a lot of people, I actually not a lot. Maybe a lot of people out here, I knew what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I was a little kid, and I was 9 years old, and I was at the movie theater with my brother, and I had to go pee. And this is when 9-year-olds were allowed to go pee by themselves. And I walked out of the theater, went pee, and then I was walking back, and I heard noises in the next theater, and I walked over, and I looked on the marquee inside the actual movie theater, and it just said Raw. And I was like, Raw? I'm like, what's that? So I walk in, I hear all these people laughing, and I open the door, and my eyes lit up, and it was Eddie Murphy.
No shit.
And I was watching Eddie Murphy Raw at the movie theater, and I was fascinated by this cool fucking black dude dressed like just a fucking G. And I tell people this, there was 2 tiers of laughter that I was hearing. The laughter where they actually shot it in the arena, and then the laughter in the actual movie theater. So I'm watching this double amount of laughter, and I just said, I want to do that one day. That looks like fun. And then right there, I was like, I just want to make people laugh. I came from a rough house, big family, a lot of shit that was going on. And I felt that humor was my escape. And it has been. And, the first time I actually got on stage was in 2000, and it was actually in Phoenix. It wasn't here. I moved out here 20 years ago to work with Bob Odenkirk on a movie. The gig fell through 20 years ago. Cell phones were barely being used. Social media didn't exist. The internet was just starting to ramp up. It was very difficult. And I knew literally no one in this town. I knew nobody. I didn't know what I was doing. I slept in my car. I stayed at friends' places. I couch surfed. I didn't know what I was doing. I ended up moving to Phoenix because I had a friend there, stayed there for 6 months, and I would do open mics there. And it was just just trying to figure out myself as a 22-year-old, aspiring comic. So that's where my comedy life, career, whatever, started. And then it just goes in every fucking, every road possible. My journey is just a big fucking spiral. A lot of people have a steady one. A lot of people don't, like me. I've been all over. I've done, I did Second City in Chicago in 2004 for a couple years, acting and writing classes. So I did the, improv. I hosted live events in big and small places in Chicago, Miami, Los Angeles, Las Vegas. So I've comfortable around a live audience and people, always have been. And then I wrote a shitload in my 20s and 30s, stories, jokes, all this stuff, and I kept it going. But I really didn't do a lot of stand-up. I would open for bands at a bar I worked at. I'd do 10 minutes before the band, which was really fucking hard. Nobody wants to imagine,
yeah. No one's going to a show and they want to see a comedian, unless it's it's AC/DC and it's fucking Jim Brewer. That's the only one.
Yeah, what it is that 100 people there to see a band, and then out comes the fucking door guy to do 10 minutes of dick jokes, and it was just I did okay. I did get laughs, but a lot of it was did he really say that? Because I'm performing in front of my staff, and my parents were there too the first time I performed there.
They must have loved that.
Oh, they were my dad's smoking a cigar. This is when you could still fucking smoke in bars. That's how long ago it was. And he's smoking a cigar, and my mom's there, and they're looking at me like, what the fuck is he saying? I'm talking about getting hand jobs from married women. And the worst part about it is when the ring slips around because, they're all wet. I just went on this.
Oh, you're fucking gross.
Yeah.
You're so gross.
Yeah, that's where it started. And then I moved out here again in 03 for a little bit. Fell through again. I've been in Vegas twice, and then after 04 I moved back to Chicago and stayed there for a while, and I just kind of I didn't give up, I just got beat up by LA so much. I was like, I can't take it anymore. It's just too much.
You and a million other people. LA is just littered with the smell of bum urine and broken dreams
and desperation.
How did things at Sycamore turn into the dojo?
We had a promoter doing bringer shows, TK, and he had started there right after football season. So the managers at the time were like, "Hey, we know you're a stand-up comic. We're bringing comedy in upstairs a couple nights a week. We want you to work it." So I started working that, and I started performing like as much as I could. I got up all the time, but he was still making me bring, which was weird. Like once I understood like how clubs worked, I'm like, you don't make staff bring. They just get their stage time, even if it's 5 minutes. So, but I did my best. I brought people. Sometimes I didn't, but I was able to just continue to work it. And then we went through some management changes. I got moved up and down, and we fired our GM at the time. I got moved up to full-time manager, and our CFO, Mike, he looked at me and he goes, I want to get rid of kickball. I want to get rid of these events upstairs. He goes, what can you do? And I said, listen, I moved here to pursue stand-up comedy. I go, I can make it a comedy room. He goes, okay, cool. I go, that's it? He goes, yeah. He's like, that's it. He goes, do whatever you need to do. And I'm like, okay. And this is when I was still drinking and shit and doing coke. So I was just like, my brain was a little fucked up. So I'm like, did he just give me this? Like, it didn't like connect.
Keys to the castle.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, cool. And he goes, and he stood up and he's like, you know how Mike is. He's like, hey, like
how's it like?
Yeah, he's like, hey. And he's like, hey, he's like, pretty cool. You moved to LA to be a stand-up comic, and now you got your own room. And I'm like, yeah. I had no fucking idea what I was getting myself into, man. Holy shit.
So for everyone listening, the Dojo of Comedy is Trevor's baby, and you run it or set it up with another big comedian, Sam Tripoli, who's one of my favorite people.
Yes, I was getting to that.
How did you and Sam Tripoli come together?
When I first moved, 3rd, 4th, 800th time I moved here 5.5 years ago, I was going to the Comedy Store all the time. And the first time I went there, I stayed through the entire night because I wanted to watch every single comic. And I was taking notes on comics.
Really?
Yeah. Just like studying them, because I was like, this is the #1 comedy club in the world. I should be paying attention to everything these comics do. And some of them thought I was like hacking, and they're like, what are you doing? I go, I'm just taking notes.
They're like stealing their shit.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, don't be stealing my shit. I go, no, I'm a comic. And someone thought I was an agent or a manager. And I was like, no. I'm studying the craft, but in front of me.
Robin Williams used to do that. He used to sit in the back of the room and write down, sorry, it's my shit. He would sit in the back of the room and write down other people's jokes and steal them.
Oh, I never did that.
But then later on would send them a check for $10,000 and shit like that. Like,
wow,
he did
I
some
didn't know
fucked up shit, but he kind of made up for it.
Yeah. I would write their names down, then I would look them up on Instagram, and I'd read it, go to their Twitter, and I'd just watch them, and I was just like studying comics. That's all I was doing. I was trying to just study these comics, and then I'd put little checks on the comics I really enjoyed. Sam was one of them. How the Comedy Store works is you've got like the first until about 10, 11 o'clock, you have like the meat comics, like the ones that are just like everyone knows, the Rogans, the Diaz,
killers.
The Santino, DeLea.
We're not even going to talk about it.
All, Whitney, all the big A-lister comics are, and then about 11 to 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock is when it turns, and then you get the late night comics, and that's where I tell people that's where the magic is. You have to watch that, and that's where the first time I saw Sam was a late night show, And he did a bit about smoking meth with the Silver Man when he first moved to LA. And it was one of the funniest bits I had ever heard in my life. And I was just in stitches. I couldn't stop laughing. I went up to him later, shook his hand, was when you could shake hands. You know, and I was just like, dude, I was like, I've never heard you. You're amazing. He's like, oh, thanks a lot, man. Yeah. And that was it. And then I saw him a year later outside of a Starbucks. And I talked to him. And I was like, hey, Sam Tripoli. He goes, yeah. I go, I'm Trevor Keveloh. He's like, oh, do I know you? I go, we've met before. You know, we've tweeted with each other on Instagram. And I was like, I'm aspiring comic. He goes, hit me up. He's like, you know, I'll come watch you sometime and give you some help. And I was like, okay. And then when I got the room, like 6 months, a year later, whenever it was, Sam had done a couple shows there with TK. They split shows, packed it out, fucking crushed it. Great lineups. Like Eric Griffin was there, Eddie Bravo was there, just massive lineups. And Sam was talking to me. He's like, I want to do some shows here. And I go, I produce some of my own shows. I was doing my own monthly shows on my own. Like the GM just at that point didn't care what I was doing. So I was like, okay, cool. So I did my own shows, and jumped to when I was given the room. I hesitated. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know if I can do this. This is a lot. Like, this is a lot. This is Hollywood. This isn't my hometown or the suburbs of Chicago. This is fucking Hollywood. So I was like, I don't know who I'm going to call. And I was like, and I had been texting with Sam back and forth. I'd see him at the Comedy Store. We'd talk. And then I texted him. I'm like, fuck it. I was like, I'm going to hit him up. And I just said, Sam, I got the room.
Oh, that's dope.
And he was like, what? I go, I got the room. It's mine. He goes, holy shit, we need to meet. And we met like 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. We'd have dinner. We'd have breakfast, whatever. We'd talk. We started to get people involved. Because he's 25 years in. He's one of the hardest working LA comics. He's so good to people. He gives so many young new comics chances.
He's phenomenal when it comes to that. When we were running Sycamore together, and the dojo was upstairs, I witnessed him on multiple occasions. He pulled like Jackie Brown and a couple other comedians. He pulled them inside and like basically gave them a fucking course on like, this is what you guys need to be doing right now. X, Y, Z. Sat him in the corner. And he's super great with everyone he meets. If you're upcoming and if you're up and coming and you're trying to get your foot in the door, he's one of those OGs that comes and holds your hand. And he's not a dick to you in any way.
Right. About a year, it'll be 2 years this December, we were in Chicago, and I opened for him and Eddie Bravo in a tinfoil hat comedy show. And there's like 160 people sold out. They sold out like 2 weeks before the show.
Oh, they have an insane fan base, literally and figuratively.
And I did like 10 minutes up front, and people laughed. It wasn't my best set. It was because the thing was, it was a good set, but it wasn't a tinfoil hat set. It wasn't a conspiracy. I had some conspiracy jokes, but I'm not a conspiracy comic. I just love that culture.
Yeah, that crowd is very specific.
And I went upstairs in the green room, and Sam sat me down and berated me in a good way. Like, he's like,
he won't hold back.
Yeah, he's like, God, we need to fucking talk. I was like, well, shit. He brings me up in the green room. He starts yelling at me. He's like, what the fuck, man? He's just like, he goes, you're fucking going up there, you're telling stories, and there's no fucking punchlines. He's like, you're funny. He goes, people laugh at you, look at you. Dude, I was wearing like this sweater with a fucking rainbow scarf, and I was doing gay jokes, and I was just being weird and fun. I was being me. But that really stuck. And I was like, a lot of my jokes don't have strong punchlines.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And I started to rewrite everything. And he said that any joke, if you can't tell me the joke in one sentence, it's not worth it.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
How did you guys come up with the name of the dojo?
That was his name. Before it became officially the dojo, he was running shows called the DOJO of COMEDY there. So it was a brand that he created.
Right.
It worked because we're both huge MMA fans. He went to school in Vegas. He lived in Vegas. I worked in the MMA industry for almost 10 years. So I knew a lot of these people that crossed over from from MMA to comedy. I knew them before I moved here. I never, ever once told any of them, though. I never used that kind of like pulled that card and be like, oh, by the way, I used to do this with this company, or I kind of separated myself from that life and created my own thing. But The DOJO of Comedy was his name he created. And I loved it. I instantly fell in love with it.
No, it's great. I mean, it's a practice space. It's essentially what a dojo is.
Yeah.
And you guys, for those of you that are listening that don't know, the Dojo of Comedy in LA was the home base for every new comedian that came to LA and wanted to get, a spot, because you guys had open mics every night. You had multiple open mics a day. We used to have a 4 o'clock one on Monday, and then that night, and then you had regular shows upstairs, which was phenomenal. You guys you guys could have been something huge had COVID not really fucked everything up. Earlier you mentioned that you're sober. Yeah. I want to touch on that story and how that happened, because it's fucking mind-blowing.
2 years, 5 months, I think 2 days now. So
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. So I used to drink a lot, for about 20 years. Started smoking weed. I'm 42. I started smoking weed when I was 31. I was a late bloomer with weed. I moved here 5.5 years ago, and I started doing coke. Never done coke a day in my life before I moved here.
The way to start.
Yeah.
In your 30s.
Yeah, 37 years old, I developed a mild coke problem. I say mild because it wasn't as bad as people think. I wasn't doing it all day. It wasn't like getting me by. It was a party drug for me. Right. And I partied a lot because I wasn't working here for like the first 3 or 4 months. So I did a bunch of coke. I was having fun. I liked it. And I always liked to stay up late. And I never liked to go to bed because I like to keep the party going, because I had that problem with just saying, okay, it's time to go to bed. So I was down in San Diego almost 2.5 years ago. And I wanted to get out of LA. I wanted to get away from the party. Right. My goal was to go down to San Diego, sip Coronas on the beach, shoot Jameson, sip Jameson, and get baked, and just watch the waves roll in for hours and do nothing else. Time. That's all I wanted to do. That's it. My buddy I went with, he had a different idea. He's like, oh, we haven't seen each other. He's my boy from Chicagoland. Like, he lives in Orange County. I was up here, and he's like, oh, let's go, rage. I'm like, I don't want to rage, dude. I want to drink and get high, and I want to chill. I don't want to do shit. And he's like, the next day we were going down to San Diego because he was in Orange County, and he's like, I got to get some coke. And I'm like, I don't want. I'm like, fine. I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, I'm just not doing any. So we're in San Diego. It's about 4 o'clock. I'm pretty hammered. I'm like, all right, let's do some coke. Because he's bugging me all like for hours. I'm like, I don't want to do coke. I just don't want to. He's like, come on, it's good. I go, oh, God, that's what everyone says. Anytime someone says it's good, it's fucking not good.
It's never good.
Yeah. I blasted my first line. I was like, oh, that's fucking really good. Then I do the other line. I'm like, this is really good coke. I was like, shit, this is not what I wanted to do. So I'm sitting there. I start trying to sober up. I know I was pretty fucking, fucked up. And we were drinking a lot. And I think it was 8 o'clock, and I did some more rails, and I was like feeling good, but I was feeling like that. I call it the Hollywood trifecta. I was drunk, stoned, and coked out. Nice. I call it the Hollywood trifecta, and I was like, but I was just kind of like, woo, this is all, everything's murder, whatever. So we go to like a restaurant. I was like at Denny's or something, and he's inside. I think he went inside to pee or something, or probably do more coke, or both. And I'm outside, kind of fucked up. And we've got the truck door open, music blaring. I'm just kind of like doing my thing, like whatever. Someone comes up behind me and just fucking sticks me with a knife. And I was like, oh shit.
Jesus Christ.
And my instinct is like, I'm getting jumped.
Right.
So I was like, fuck, I dropped my phone because I was on my phone, and I like pick it up. I'm like, shit, where am I? I look around and I see the truck, and I'm like, oh, they're going to carjack us. Because he's got a real nice truck. So I run over to the truck, and I'm looking around, and then I just look, and because I was fucked up, I just see like just this image running. Uh-huh. They do it in like CSI. They actually do a really good job of like, these sequences of what people see. And it was just like this image of someone running and then just like dissolved. And I'm like, fuck. And I run across the street to this restaurant where my buddy was working. He's like, hey, it looks like you cut your neck with shaving. He like didn't know because there was like some blood. I go in the bathroom. I was like, oh shit. So I get a towel. I'm able to do this. As fucked up as I was able to do this thanks to the coke.
Because you weren't like bleeding profusely,
no,
right? Because it's like a regular stab. It takes a minute for the blood to come out.
Exactly. So, and since I was so fucked out, all the blood, whatever it does. So, I get a napkin, soap, start to clean it up, and then all of a sudden, it just starts gushing out. It didn't shoot out. It's like It's like chicks. There's gushers and there's squirters. I'm a gusher.
Sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this.
And so it just starts gushing out, and I'm like, oh shit, and I'm grabbing napkins and water, and it's not working. I'm holding it, and there's just the blood just starts splashing everywhere. I've got my phone on the counter. I call my buddy. He's there within 2 minutes, and he's a big guy. He comes runs in, kicks open the door. He's like, what the fuck, man? I'm like, I got stuck. I'm bleeding out. And he goes, shit, and he's freaking out, pulls off a sweatshirt, ties it around my neck real tight, and we run out of the restaurant, jump into his truck, and he's like Googling hospital. So we're flying down the freeway, listening to Swedish House Mafia, just cranked. And I look over at him, and I've got this sweatshirt. It actually looks just like that. A sweatshirt tied real tight. And my left ear is completely full of blood. I can't hear anything. All I can hear is like the house music.
Right.
I look over, and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, and I look over, and he's just scooping lines as he's driving. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I might die before I get to the hospital. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, shit.
You got to keep the party going.
Yeah, it just keeps. So we go to the first hospital, fucking closed, as in finito, as in 86th.
Who closes a hospital?
Yeah, Dunzo. And I was like, how does that not come up on your fucking search, you idiot?
Right.
That's what I'm thinking. So we go to the next hospital. That's open. Pull into the ER. There's like 3 people in the ER, old people, like, oh, my back, my head. They're all just like sitting there, just doing nothing. And then here come 2 big fucking Chicagoans, kick open the door, and they like hit a button. And it's like code red or black, or whatever the fuck it's called. And legitimately, when I go in the ER room, it's just like the TV show. There's 20 people running around because they're not used to this shit.
It's mind-blowing that you were so coherent when this happened.
Totally. I was like, I just was aware. Like I used to black out a lot, but that was before I did coke. Right. So I blacked out like way too much, but I, had a drinking problem with, shit that had happened to me in my past. So I just constantly, and I had that problem. Some people have this that drink. If I got a buzz, I couldn't sleep. I was wired.
Oh, I know a lot of people like that.
So I would get annihilated so I could pass out and then feel like shit the next day. So I walk in there, everyone's running around. He ends up just taking off. He doesn't stick around. He leaves because he's all fucking yacked out and drunk and whatnot.
The last place you want to be is a hospital. And there's like a security guard in the front when you wait in the room. You're paranoid as fuck.
So, they bring me to the ER room. They look at me, and it's not graphic, but when they took the sweatshirt off, it was completely soaked in blood. I mean, and when they untied it and picked it up, I remember this to this day. I could hear the moisture of the blood in the sweatshirt, like being unraveled, and then they dropped it on the floor, and I just hear the splat and blood just go.
Do you remember the color of your blood? Because the guy that died in my arms, the one that got stabbed and again didn't bleed right away, it was like black.
Yeah,
it wasn't red.
It was dark.
Black.
It was very dark.
So dark.
Yeah, it was very dark. That I remember that, and then I bled so much. I bled out, I think, well over 2 pints is what they told me, because I had a blood transfusion too. Really? So I look in my jeans, my favorite pair of jeans. Like, I have a weird body. I have like a in shape penguin body. I have these perfect jeans that just fit well. These really cool shoes that Christian got me. A shirt and a hoodie, like a hat, like everything gone because I was soaked in blood. Not soaked, but my whole attire was caked in blood and whatnot. But so I'm sitting there all fucked up, and they're asking me questions, and I'm literally cracking jokes. They're like, what's your height? I'm like 5'9". They're like, your weight? And I'm like, I'm fat, bitch. I actually said that to the nurse, and they're like, okay. And they're asking these questions. I'm like, And then the nurse is like, whatever they're asking me. The surgeon comes over. There's 2 surgeons. One comes over and he goes, because the nurses are like, they're not getting a lot out of me. I'm telling them stuff, but I'm using humor to deflect the fact that I'm bleeding to death, like legitimately bleeding to death. Surgeon comes over, he goes, Mr. Keveloh, my name's so-and-so. And I was like, oh, my God, where's Dr. Wang, or is it Chang? Because there's a Dr. Wang. And I'm
nice. Racist.
Yeah, making racist jokes, Cool. No offense to Asians, but...
Surprised they didn't just let you die there on the spot.
I'm really surprised. They should have, probably. So he's like, and he levels with me. He's like, Mr. Keveloh, he's like, we need to perform emergency surgery on you. You've lost a lot of blood. We need to do a blood transfusion. You need to just work with us. And everything just went, whoosh, and like, I went from like, funny Trevor to like, serious, this is not a joke. Like, quarterback in the fucking pocket, 2-minute warning, driving 80 yards kind of bullshit. And I was like, fuck. So I started rattling off everything I knew about myself physically. I was like, I have bad teeth. I think I might have had a stomach hernia at one point. I'm not allergic to anything. I was like, just everything I could think of. I said it and was like, when I was 9 years old, I fell down and I got 2 stitches in my lip. It was like just going off everything. And they're like, I'm like,
you're just dumping information.
Yeah.
Down.
I was like, I don't have cancer. I was like, and I was like, they asked me like what I was on. I go, and I told them, I was like, I've been drinking, smoking, and doing coke. Like, I was honest, like everything. I'm like, okay.
Could you imagine if you weren't, where they would have put in you to try to save you and that wound up killing you?
Exactly. So, because they need to know what's in me, and I'm not the type of person. I don't have the mind of a criminal.
Right.
So criminals would do that. Like, oh, if I tell them I'm on this, then they might arrest me. I was just like, I want to live. So the doctor, the surgeon puts the mask on to knock me out. And he's like, count backwards. And I was like, please, before I count, I legit said, please don't let me die. I can't die. And he goes, you're in good hands. You're going to be fine. I go, you don't understand. I have too much to live for. I cannot die.
That must be such a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Like, to even have to think about that.
Yeah. I was like bargaining with him because I was like, I got too much going on in my life. And I was like, I can't do this. So I started breathing. I had the mask on. I started breathing. And I started praying and crying. I was just praying and crying at the same time. And then I wake up 2 a.m. and I'm in this hospital room and there's detectives, nurses, surgeons there. There's like a bunch of people and I'm just sitting there like, and I thought I was dead when I first woke up. I was like, is this it? This is where I go? And I started moving my fingers and I could feel things. And I started moving shit around. I was like, oh, what the fuck? 30 seconds, maybe a minute after I wake up, detectives are asking me all these questions. And I just got up. And they always say, get people when they're most vulnerable.
Right.
I didn't know what the fuck happened. It took me a long time to figure out what happened. And I still don't really know what happened because I was fucked up. Oh,
yeah. It's like, you ever see someone get interviewed after they get knocked out, like a boxer and a MMA fighter?
Yeah.
They don't know what the fuck's going on. It's a horrible thing to do. They're so disoriented. Their mind's not working right. They have it's like hard resetting a computer.
Exactly.
And then expecting it to go like,
crush.
Function every program you have. Yeah. It just doesn't work like that.
And it was really hard. And I woke up and then I couldn't help them a lot. And they said, can you charge your phone so we can go through your phone? And I was like, what? And I have a fucking stupid ass Samsung S8. So I need like a special charger. They didn't have one in the hospital. So I wasn't able to charge my phone. And I'm like, what do you want from me? You think I was like, I wasn't dealing coke.
Right.
If I was dealing coke, you would have seen it. You would have felt it.
I probably thought it was like a drug deal that went wrong.
Right. And that's, of course, if people up here said. I was just like, I'm not going to go to San Diego to deal drugs. I deal drugs in LA. Like everyone.
I could go to the corner.
Yeah, no shit. I wouldn't go do it there. I was getting away from this shit. So I got, they finally left and I sat in this hospital room for 12 hours and I'm like, how did I get here? I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person. I help people. I don't hurt people. I've made my mistakes in my life, but how did I get in this situation? And it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do was call my mom and let her know I was okay. But making that phone call. I forgot
about that phone call you told me about it.
Dude, it was just, I had to hold back every bit of me. And I just said, I was like, I'm in San Diego. I'm in the hospital. I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. But I was attacked last night. I just want you and Dad to know in case something got out. And it was so hard. And my mom, I could tell, like, she got off the phone. She probably just, like, broke down.
She was probably heartbroken.
Yeah.
And you had to tell her, I was drunk. I was in coke.
Yep.
You had to be on it. Like, that's such a hard thing. Like, I mean, my mom just found out I smoke weed. Like, I can't even, right? I can't even imagine.
She's like, me too.
Having her to understand, like, all the nonsensical bullshit that I've done.
And the thing in my family is all my older siblings have battled some sort of addiction, not addiction, but like have had their time.
Right.
I was drug free until I smoked weed at 31. And back then it was a drug, an illegal drug. Now it's like, smoking weed's better than drinking. But I was like Mr. Sober, and then I moved here and I started doing coke, and that got around town, and everyone's just like, oh, Trevor's a cokehead now, because that was the story that was being presented by certain people back in my hometown. They were taking this tiny bit of information and creating their own story out of it.
Right. You were the party monster.
Yeah, and it hurt really bad. Like I would put myself in some dark places when I was partying because I was like, why are these certain people doing this to me? I'm like, it's not even your life. We don't even talk. Why are you doing this? And I was like, it's, and it fucked my head up. But
I think I asked you this last time. That phone call to your mom, do you think that had an effect on you becoming sober? Like, do you think that phone call was like the reason that made you go, not just dying, but like that honesty, that vulnerability, speaking to your mom is like, oh fuck, like I have to fix everything and make this not happen again.
100%, because I had to confront what I did.
Right.
Because this was my fault. Not my fault, my fault. Someone attacked me. I understand. I'm a victim, but I don't walk around like a victim.
Right.
I've got my issues. I got my PTSD. I got some issues. Like, I figuratively and literally don't like to get close to people anymore.
Right.
I've secluded myself pre-Rona, which is why I'm good at this. I just don't like to be as outgoing because you expose yourself in a lot of different ways and you're too outgoing.
Yeah, and here we're surrounded by psychos.
Yeah, and people that, you have all these like essentially vampires of all different sorts that are, sucking the life out of everybody to get what they want. So that was like I said, that was probably the hardest call in my life and one of the hardest things I've had to do, because it was confronting what happened to me and having to hear it myself say that. And when I got off the phone, I just cried, and I sat there for 12 hours alone in a hospital room, and I was just like, I got to change. I can't do this anymore. Like I was just like, I was a mess. And then they rolled my ass out because they thought I didn't have insurance. Legit, man.
So fucked up.
In my scrubs.
Our medical system's so backwards.
Ass hanging out, no anything. No underwear. I had those socks they give you.
Did they release you to someone? Like
I told them my friend was coming to get me. He wasn't coming to get me. They just rolled me out and they let me out there. So I was in my scrub or whatever. I didn't shower. They didn't clean me up. So I have dried blood caked all in my hair, in my ear, everywhere. I have the what do you call it? The wound thing, whatever, the bandage. Yeah, there we go. Bandage. The bandage, and like just blood everywhere. And I went from the hospital, took a cab because my phone was dead, from the hospital to the San Diego train station.
Downtown?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Dressed like this.
No one stopped because like you look like a psycho. You look like a nut.
People looked at me and just looked away. I got on, and I had like my manila envelope with my release papers and all that. Got on the train, took it to Anaheim train station, took a cab from there. Well, I charged my phone, finally got a hold of my buddy, took a cab from Anaheim train station to his place, and then he dropped me off in L.A.
All this time with your ass hanging out.
Ass hanging out. Caked in blood, hair everywhere. Oh, half shaved because they had to do the surgery.
Oh, that's right.
The bandage. Those weird socks. That's just how I was like, did people just think I was an extra in Code Black?
Yeah, you look like you would have came out of mental institution.
Yeah. And no one stopped me. No one said a fucking word. I was sitting at a bar charging my phone, drinking water. So
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. Listen,
no, it was funny.
I'm very happy that you're still here with us.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you're sober. I'm happy that you're happy.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm excited to have you hear about is the story with your father.
Yeah.
Your father experienced some wild shit.
Yes.
That he kind of kept to himself for the most part. He let you and your family know slightly. And then on
3 years ago.
And then on his deathbed, he kind of
essentially, yeah.
Yeah, he kind of came out with the full story.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hand that over to you and let you talk about all of that.
So backstory on my father: he is a German immigrant, grew up in Nazi Germany during World War II. He was very young, contracted polio when he was like 2, so he's in and out of hospitals a lot as a kid with polio and shit. He immigrated over. He actually went to Australia first. Then he came to the States in the mid 60s, late 60s. I can't remember. And he had been a welder and a plumber. And his career choice, because they had things different there, he wanted to be a plumber. That was his, what he wanted to do. So he pursued that. He got a job out here for different outfits out here in Chicago, the States, whatever. And he ended up getting a job at Illinois Institute of Technology, which is based in Chicago. So one day he got called in on his day off. I believe it was a Sunday, he said. He gets called in on his day off for a gas leak or pipe leak or whatever. So he goes in and he, checks in with the super, and then they send him downstairs.
Is this the main event you're talking about, or the other stuff with the horses?
This is the main event.
All right, I want to lead up to.
Oh, okay.
All right, so
there's actually kind of 2 main events because stopped at the airports.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too. So the people that don't know, IIT is the Illinois Institute of Technology. They've been known to have a veil of secrecy around them for a very long time.
Decades.
They're known to have underground facilities, hidden underground facilities that have government-run programs. And when your father was working in there and he used to have to go and check some shit, you told me that they saw some of the experiments that the school was involved in.
Yeah. So for anybody out there, you can do a simple search on any search engine and look up this stuff about IIT, about the underground facilities. My father had seen, it was a horse on a table, and they were pumping basically chemicals or poison into the horse to see how much it could take before it died. So that was their way of saying, okay, how much poison can we put into the air or into the grass or whatever until it dies? He had seen also, it sounds weird because it's kind of funny. I mean, it's not, but it's funny. As long as PETA doesn't hear this. There is a monkey.
They're not going to sue me.
Yeah. They can't sue him. He's dead. Yeah. There's a monkey with like a metal helmet or something on it. Mm-hmm. And they're literally shooting like lasers at it, testing the lasers, the monkey, the metal to see how much it could take.
And your father spoke with the people like running because they gave him like a tour at that time, right?
Yeah, they basically took him downstairs and just let him go to where he needed to go, but he got lost. So he's going down and down, and I forgot what floor it was, and he said that he goes he'd seen these in these like, I guess like labs as he's walking through like these, hallways and whatnot. And he walks into this room, and it's basically this giant underground warehouse. Mm-hmm. And he looks and he's like, what the fuck am I seeing? And it's this huge netting with essentially a flying saucer, to put it like simple. And it's like, from the way he described it, because I remember as a kid now and talking about it, was a lot like the one from Flight of the Navigator.
Okay.
And also, the bizarre thing is so much of the stuff Bob Lazar has talked about.
Right.
I was like, this is the shit my dad told us about 3 years ago. And then there's those 2 guys that were just on Rogan that they talked UFOs.
Oh, Corbell and Commander David Faber.
Yeah, and they talked about testing cows and finding these cows mutilated in the middle of the fields, and cows having
Skinwalker Ranch or whatever.
And like, they think that they were doing tests on cows, and I'm like, and I'm putting it together like my dad saw the testing of the horse in the lab. So anyway, so he walks into this huge warehouse. He sees netting and just this saucer just floating.
Did he describe what that saucer looked like?
Yeah, he said essentially it was just like the one Flight of the Navigator.
Metal.
Like that metal, that silver sleek. And he's staring at it like, what am I looking at? And he said he saw 2 aliens and a child alien.
Did he describe what they look like?
Yes, it's exactly the description that Lazar gave and those guys gave on Rogan's thing. Like they're like half-size human bodies,
right?
Like a white color. I think it was a gray, larger head, no anatomy. Like I have a bunch of videos where I'm asking my dad about their penis size, if they had big cocks or not, and like we're just fucking off drinking coffee, and he's telling me all this crazy shit. I've got a bunch of these like videos.
Do you? Can I get a hold of those?
Oh yeah, I got them on my phone.
Fucking love that.
Like,
yeah,
we're just horsing around, and he's like telling me this stuff, and I'm asking stupid questions because we're just having fun, you know. So he sees this and he's staring at it, and I was like, were they talking? Were they playing football or catch? He's like, no, they're just walking around. They would walk into the saucer, they'd walk down, and he said there's 2 chairs and a table, and they're just sitting there, and they were like, the little one was walking around, and the adults essentially were like, it was like they were just kind of like hanging out.
A family. Yeah,
exactly, like a family. And he said that. Then a security officer came over and freaked out. He's like, what are you doing here? And he's just like, I'm the plumber. I'm just here to fix the leak or whatever. You can't be down here. What are you doing? And they usher him out. And like I said, it was a Sunday. It was his day off. Comes into work the next day. His supervisor for IAT is trying to fire him. Like, you know, and he said there's 2 essentially men in black in the room. And there was his supervisor, and they're like, we need to fire you, blah, blah, blah. And then they started talking to him and questioning him. He's like, what did you see? And he told them. And they're like, he's seen too much. You can't fire him now.
Fuck. And could you imagine that? Like, he must have been scared for his life.
Yeah, it doesn't help that he's a German immigrant, and this is 20 years after World War II.
Right.
And anybody that knows anything about what the Nazis did with NASA...
Yeah.
Like, was it Operation Paperclip? Holy shit. Like, NASA was literally created and invented by Nazi scientists. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's actually information you can find anywhere.
Yeah, we brought them over for, I guess...
over
freedom.
1,000.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 Nazi scientists and doctors and whatnot came here. And they invented NASA.
All right, so this happened 80s-ish.
No, 60s.
This happened in the 60s.
60s,
oh, yeah.
yeah.
40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah, so
he's been keeping the secret for the most part.
His entire life, before he even met my mom.
Wow.
Yeah, because they said, when they're in the room, they said, you can't tell anybody. And my dad, he's old school. His word is bond. He's not going to say shit. He's like, and he goes, I'll take it to my grave. He goes, okay. And then they gave him security clearance. They gave him like a raise, like kind of like, that's what you do to people when they catch you, you know, fucking your wife or something. It's like they said, all right, well,
you get raises for fucking people's wives.
Yeah, like he's seen too much. I gotta
get in that business.
Yeah, he's seen too much. Give him a raise, a security clearance, and you know, let him go his way. So that happened, like I said, late 60s. And then let's jump to. I'll try to make it somewhat chronological. The first time he told me this happened was in. I can't remember if it was before or after 2001, 9/11. My dad was traveling to Germany to see family. Almost all of his family's over there, except for like his, brothers and sister that are both dead now. But that's for another time. So he's traveling there, and he gets stopped in the airport by 2 agents. And they said, "Where are you going, Mr. Keveloh?" And he said, "I'm going to Germany." And he goes, "Are you there for business or pleasure?" And he says, "It's for pleasure. I'm going to see my family." And they said to him, "You haven't told anyone, have you?" And he said, "Nope." And they said, "Okay." And they walked away.
Who was your dad with when this happened?
I think he was by himself.
By himself.
Yeah,
okay.
He was going there. I don't think my mom went with him because she had to watch all of us rats. So he was over there for a couple weeks, comes back. And he told me this much later in his life. He didn't tell me at the time. So let's jump to a couple years later. My brother bought a condo in Boca Raton, Florida. And my dad and him would go down there. They traveled there for pleasure. My brother was planning on moving there. So my brother and my dad, they drive down there so he could leave his car there, and then they're flying back. So my brother and my dad are in the airport. I forgot which one. You would know, not me. Somewhere around Boca, Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. There's also West Palm Beach Airport, but I don't know if that goes everywhere.
Yeah, so I think it was Fort Lauderdale. My dad gets pulled aside by agents again and pulled into a room. And my dad has a serious rageaholic problem. My dad I've seen him lose it over literally nothing. He's gotten into almost fistfights with police officers, with park rangers. He's crazy. He was fucking crazy when he was younger. And he gets pulled in this room. My brother's like, "Where are you taking him?" And he's just like, "We need to take your father." And my brother's panicking, and he's like, "I'll be right back. Everything will be fine." 30 minutes later, my dad comes out, calm as can be, totally chill. He's like, "All right, let's go." And he's like, "What the fuck happened?" He goes, "Don't worry about it. We're fine. They just had to ask me a few questions."
And didn't tell your brother. He didn't go any more detail with your brother.
Nothing. So that was 2002, 3, 4, 5, around there. I can't remember. So that happened, and I don't think my dad ever flew after that. And I always thought it was because of his health, because he's had so many health problems. It was because he was constantly getting harassed at the airport by these agents. Whether they're Men in Black, FBI, CIA, NSA, or whatever fucking, whatever weird stuff that the government has. So for about 10 years, my dad always had flip phones. Not a smartphone guy. Doesn't text anything. Just had this ghetto ass fucking flip phone. He would get a call every once in a while from an unknown number.
What?
For years. I was there one time when it happened. I saw him, and I took care of my dad a lot as he got older and was getting more sick. But he would get these phone calls from an unknown number, and they would ask, "Have you told anyone?" He goes, "Nope, haven't said a word." And I said, "Okay, keep it that way." He'd hang up the phone, open it back up, call it, disconnected number.
No shit.
This happened for like 10 years. I remember one time he did it. We were sitting there watching Cheaters or something. I don't know. We watched bad daytime TV. He loved like some weird shit. He loved Cheaters. He loved car auction.
I know you're talking about. Yeah,
the car auction one is in like Arizona, and like Judge Brown or Judge Judy or Judge someone. So he had and then he watched every episode of Ancient Aliens.
That was my other question. Like, did you ever notice that he had like an interest in aliens?
Ridiculously heavy, bizarre, creepy obsession with it. As long as probably the first joke he ever tried on me when I was a kid. He said, "Look in the sky, there's a flying saucer," and it was April Fool's. We all ran out and looked up, and he goes, "April Fool's, there's no saucer." I was like, "What the fuck? Like, that's it? That's your joke?" Like, man, I was like, now I know where I get my humor from. There's no punchlines.
Did you ever witness him when he was watching stuff like, I don't know, say like, they don't fucking look like that.
Yes.
They look, really?
I have some videos on my phone where he would explain to me what he thinks about, like, the alien race, essentially. And I remember one time I was taking care of him, and he came out of the computer room, rolled out in his wheelchair. And I went in there and I was like, "Oh God!" I'm like, I hope he wasn't looking at porn. I was like, "Oh, it's so weird."
Your dad's jerking off to alien porn?
Yeah, because he's German, they're fucking weirdos. So I was like, shit. So I sit down, and it wasn't. It was worse. It was reptilian, like websites about reptilian people he's reading about.
Wow.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what? And I wasn't really educated on the reptilian thing. I knew about a lot of shit, but it was like the TV show V back in the 80s, that kind of stuff. And I was like, that's fucking weird. And they consider that one of the top 20 conspiracy theories of all time, or used to be.
It's up there.
Now it's changed the past 4 years, especially with this whole Epstein thing. So he would tell me about, he believes that there's like an alien race that's protecting us from other alien races that are trying to come here. He believes that there are aliens that walk among us. This isn't like him being crazy. My dad does not do drugs. He's never been schizophrenic. He's never had any mental issues. And he's just telling me this tongue-in-cheek, like, this is what he believes. And most people, up until I'd say the past few years, would think, okay, this guy's nuts, or he's watched too much fucking Star Trek. But I feel like he knew a lot more than he told us. I honestly do, and I've talked to my brother about this, the one that was with him in Boca, and I'm like, I just feel like he knew there was a lot more that happened that he didn't want to come, like, talk about.
Right.
And I think he was scared. Even when he told us on his 80th birthday, he called me and told me.
Did he ever have this conversation with your mom?
No. He kept it from her.
So she doesn't even know about this.
Well, she does now.
After the fact.
After the fact. On his 80th birthday, that was kind of his way of saying, all right, well, I hit 80. I'm dying. Let's let it out.
Yeah, there's more years behind me than they are ahead of me.
Right. So that's when he told everybody. And, it was like, it was exciting, but it was like, now I look back and there was a part of me at the time that was like, shit. He's telling everyone, which means he's starting to mentally check out or say like, okay, well, it's kind of like when you're moving and you start getting rid of shit.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it was. It's like he's getting ready to take off and go with the aliens. So we talked about a lot of different things and what he believed and, what he thinks. And he would say weird shit. Like he would be telling me this before he told me about everything that happened 3 years ago when he told us all. We'd be watching a show and he would openly just start talking about what he truly thinks and believes. And I'm like, there's an alien race that guards us from bad aliens. Like, okay, dude. I go, how do you know? And he looked at me and goes, because I know. Before he told us about what he saw, the aliens and shit, we'd be watching, alien shows, Ancient Aliens or all these other shows. And he would say that there's like this, basically alien races.
Right.
And was it like do Anunnaki, whatever?
Anunnaki,
there's all these different stuff that people are throwing out there. And to most people it just sounds like crazy sci-fi talk.
Right.
But you have people like Bob Lazar who spoke about this in the 80s. And now the United States government is saying UFOs are real.
Blowing my mind. I've known about Bob's story. I think I was in middle school when I first heard it.
Yeah.
And like I talked about it at lunch. And like no one fucking believed me. Like
no, of course
and like
not.
at that time, like I was heavily into martial arts.
Yeah.
Like Karate Kid, into comic books. Now I'm sitting here talking about aliens. Like Star Wars fan. Like that shit wasn't cool in the mid '90s.
No,
like,
it wasn't.
Now it's like all the rage. But like I was a little bit of an outcast. Like outside of my karate friends, I didn't have many friends in school till high school. Then I became popular. But like, and then I found a bunch. Like all my friends in high school were always into this shit too. So it's fucking dope. But at that time, like no one believed him, no one believed me, and now to see him have some sort of vindication in what's going on, I'm so
awesome.
Fucking stoked. And now they're saying more stuff's coming out. The USS Nimitz footage is being talked about.
Yep.
I can't wait to hear the next thing. I want there to be some. But what sucks is like we live in a digital age where there's so many phenomenal cameras. Like I can shoot a movie on my iPhone.
Yeah.
But we can't get solid footage of anything other than a light.
Yep.
And it makes sense to some degree, considering if these things are flying and they're doing what Lazar is saying, and there's a corona discharge around it, it's going to create a light, and that makes sense.
Right.
And if you're distorting the gravity around it, you're also distorting the light, so it's going to look invisible a lot of the time as well. But we can't get a solid picture of the shit.
I think, and it's just, I'm sure this has been said somewhere. I'm not the first person, but I feel that if aliens want to be seen, they'll be seen. Well,
I heard there was
it's if they're as intelligent as we think they are.
Oh yeah.
Then what they're doing. What I've read and heard and seen, not seen, but like seen on a computer, but their technology is just so far from what we have now.
Right.
And they talked about how they are able to travel so fast as the way they bend time and space and whatnot, and how they like take this ship, so to speak, and they pull from wherever they're going.
Yeah.
Almost like a reverse slingshot. When I first heard that, I'm like, oh, it's like a reverse slingshot.
Right. That's exactly how I've heard it described.
Yeah.
Have you heard the story of how we were working with them for the longest time? Essentially. Yeah. Stuff that happened at IIT.
Yep. And
so the story was, and I'll try to do a case file on this, was that we were working hand in hand with extraterrestrials, and there was a specific area on a military site that had something was going on, and you couldn't bring live ammunition into it. And one of the guards was walking into that area.
Yeah.
and an alien jumped on him to like save him, to keep him out. The other guards drew their guns, and they might have shot one, or they definitely drew their guns on them. There was some sort of altercation, and then the extraterrestrials killed all the guards. They all died of like severe head trauma.
Yeah. I've never heard that, but is that like out in...
It's out there. You got to look for it, but it's out there.
Okay. It's not Area 51 or that was it Phase 4
I don't know, but I
building
think that's also one of the documents Lazar had access to.
Okay.
Because he talked about the genetic modification briefly, which is what
we're doing.
Yeah, slightly in Rogan shit, but he had another special where he talked about it and saying that was one of the briefings he read.
Yeah.
And then maybe in the other one, but someone said that that incident happened, and maybe it was UFO Hunters. Remember the show on History Channel?
Yeah.
I think they went into it in one of their episodes as well. But yeah, it's a known thing. Like, so that incident kind of was like the fork in the road, and they kind of stopped dealing with us the way that they were.
Yeah. Well, there's the theory that they're not giving us the technology because look at what we're doing.
Right.
We can't
100% believe
can't even get along in our own fucking city.
Right. Yeah.
Our country. Like, look at what's happening right now, and it's like we're not obviously not getting political by any means, but look at how much fighting we're doing in just this country against each other. And then what else do? We just bomb the Mideast because of oil, or because, we've got, I call it dick wars.
Right.
It's like, who's got the bigger dick? Well, we do. We're going to bomb you. So it's like, if they have like this technology to help us better, what are we going to do with it? Yeah. Like, look at the atomic, dude, we used the atomic bomb in Japan how many years ago? It wasn't ages ago. I mean, America's a very young country.
Us as
colonized-wise.
Us as organisms, humans are still young compared to how old the Earth is. It's estimated, 4.4, 4.3 billion years old. Yeah. We haven't been here that long, though.
No, we were brought here. I 100% believe that.
You think that?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, the Big Bang Theory makes me fucking giggle.
That's hard. That's a hard one to swallow.
Here's my thing, and this is me watching, or scientists believe this, and you can look it up. I don't care if people disagree with me. Life comes from life. Mm-hmm. That's it. So Big Bang Theory, 2 planets hit, they fuck, and all of a sudden we have humans and skyscrapers. Where do those planets come from?
Right.
Where did that come from? It's chicken and the egg theory. The chicken and the egg theory is essentially, where did mankind start? And then when I was still smoking weed, I would go down these crazy rabbit holes, and I wish I could find this one. But
I do it every night.
These scientists talk about the God theory. They're like, we have no actual evidence of where mankind came from, where planets came from. We don't know. So they reverted back to the God theory of maybe there is something greater, whatever, supernatural, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that brought us, created us. Right. I think there's...
But then the question also rises, they created us. Who created them?
Right. Well, that's what I think is... I honestly think, like... Scientology is a little crazy. It's a wacky religion. I was involved in it for a few years.
We'll talk about that another day. Okay. We don't have enough time for that, but I want to know everything.
I was hip pocketed by Scientology for like 5 years, from the age of 17 to about 22. But if you read about, what they believe in, they essentially believe that...
good aliens, bad aliens, the Thetans and shit.
Yeah, Thetans are the spirits inside of us that they take auditing to get that out, to release it so we can live a better life. They do some wacky shit, but they essentially believe that like this intergalactic warlord named Xenu brought us.
You're not supposed to say that name.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Inu brought us here in like these B-1 bombers, like our Thetans though, our souls essentially, and brought us here and put us in volcanoes, and it erupted and then came. Like, it's crazy.
I mean, the whole religion was derived from a science fiction writer.
L. Ron Hubbard is a sci-fi writer. It's a lot of sci-fi stuff. It's very sexy and fun, but then you get involved in it, and it's like, this isn't as fun as I thought. Pretty much like anything you do.
Right.
Like, I'm going to join this. I'm going to join, whatever, Columbia.
I'm going to join Columbia.
Was it Columbia CDs when you buy those? Oh. Columbia, whatever. And all of a
I know
sudden,
you're talking about, yes.
all of a sudden you're getting bills. And
It's a little. It's a little older than me. We didn't
Yeah.
do that. My generation was ripping music off the internet by then.
Anything. When you got hired, you're like, I didn't sign up for this shit.
Oh, over there? Fuck everything about that place.
You're like, what the fuck's going on here, man? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just running around fucking headless half the time.
Let's talk to the GM. I'm just a CFO.
But
dude.
yeah, I mean, I that's what I think. I think there's much more to what, but that I sound crazy. People are going to think I'm a nutcase.
No,
but
you're not crazy. And
to me, it's more practical than.
But that's what this is. This whole podcast is a journey for myself to learn more, to figure more shit out, because I'm interested in this shit. And if anyone wants to take the journey with me, let's fucking find out. Let's figure this shit out together.
Yeah.
That's what this is. Trevor, I fucking love you.
Love you.
So happy you're here. Thank you for coming in for the second time, for trying to stay excited, telling the same stories that I'm sure you've told everyone too. But
it's all good, man. We had a nice break, like a month. So.
We did, and it means the world to me. I love you. Thank you for coming in. I want to have you back, hopefully before you move.
Oh yeah,
before you leave.
Fuck yeah.
I'll
be back and forth too.
That's it, man. Let's wrap the fuck up. Let's have a water, since you don't drink.
Yeah.
I have a Heineken Zero for you if you want. Let's wrap this motherfucker up.
All right, man.
All right, kids, we're out. Thank you very much for listening.
Late.